At this point, we'll be getting to our first topic of the day. The Minister of Power's comments about the possibility of the power distribution companies in Nigeria losing their operational licenses because of poor electricity supply to Nigerians. What do the distribution companies think about this? For a conversation around this, we're now being joined here by Chief Sunday Oduntan, Executive Director of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. Sunday Oduntan, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much.
Well,
good morning.
The introduction already indicated our area of interest. Last week, Salim Ahmed, the Minister of Power, said that the distribution companies are the problem with the electricity sector in Nigeria, and that government may consider withdrawing their operating licenses if they do not sit up. There were also insinuations, suggestions that the federal government may just take over these electricity distribution companies and hand over these companies to Siemens for greater performance and effectiveness, given Siemens' sterling record as a company that delivers around the world, Egypt, Iraq, and even previously in Nigeria. What's your take on this?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Let me first wish both of you, Tundu and Ruben Abati, a very happy Lishabi week. Thank you very much.
Lishabi week this week.
Yes, okay. Lishabi week. And both of you.
This is an Egba meeting.
Yes, this is an Egba table.
Lishabi Agbongo Akala.
Yes, so we are remembering the man who gave us a country then, before 1914.
In Abeokuta, that is.
Abeokuta, yes,
the
was
Egba
a nation. Yes, 1892 to 1914, before Lord Lugard brought us into Nigeria in August 1914. The rest of the Nigerians of today were in Nigeria from January 1914. We refused to join, but now we're in Nigeria.
Anyway, don't worry. The Nigerian constitution recognizes dual nationality. So you can talk about Egba nationalism while being a Nigerian.
The other thing I need to say first is to speak to Nigerians directly. One is to apologize to all Nigerians who are the victims of the ills and the woes of the Nigerian power sectors from 1960 to date. Because everything that happens, especially paying honest Nigerians, not the chiefs who steal energy, those paying honest Nigerians deserve electricity. Now to the Honorable Minister, and of course I will speak separately about Siemens. First, the statement that was credited to the Honorable Minister, I will say that, should I say, at best, that statement is simplistic. At worst, it was a very misleading, terribly misleading statement. And it's very sad that we are at it again. The last time I was here, I said we should start this new year without apportioning blames. We should start this year to see how best we can all work together, collaborate together to rescue this power sector. But the moment people in our Egba land, you remember, there's a proverb where they say, if you point one finger to another person, there are 4 other fingers that are pointing towards you. So I think I will tap on that note that, well, the minister having made that statement has pointed a finger to the discourse, thinking that discourse can be used as that ball that they all play, which is to say they are the bad guys in the market. That is totally untrue, completely unfair. Yes, discourse have not performed optimally. Yes, discourse are the one known by the customers, but we'll keep on telling people that there is a value chain in this sector, generation, transmission, and distribution. First of all, even though before privatization, we all know about NEPA and PCN. And in the time of NEPA, the federal government spent not less than 50 billion naira annually on that public utility that had nothing to show for it. They had in excess of 46,000 employees. The job that those 46,000 were doing, like civil servants, we have only 25,000 employees doing it and doing it better today. The aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses that we met was in excess of 54%. Today, in spite of all the constraints, all the difficulties, we have managed to reduce it to 44%. But you hear the uninformed, You hear the gullible saying that discos have no capacity, they have not done anything. Of course, the records are there. And I invite the educated listeners to please access the ANED, A-N-E-D, ANED website. You'll see all the performance record there for you to see what we have done in the last 6 years. Now, the issue of the government saying these schools have not performed, I'm even surprised that the Honorable Minister did not even talk about generation companies or transmission. But before I talk about generation and transmission, both the generation company private, distribution company private, we all signed an agreement with the government at the beginning of this privatization exercise. And we gave commitment on what we were expected to do. One example is meter, because metering is a very big issue in Nigeria. But a lot of people don't understand what is going on about metering. What they asked us to do then, in that performance agreement, was to supply about an average of 200,000 meters per annum per disco over the next 5 years. But what that meant was that in a country of about 200 million people, that number is not even enough. But they used that number to calculate the tariff, so they didn't want us to supply many meters. That's number one. But we have managed to supply 1.7 million meters, but nobody's talking about that. Okay, the agreement stated what the government committed that they would do. And that's why I said, pointing one finger leaves four. So I only mentioned four to represent four fingers so that everybody will understand the kind of thing that the federal government had done to this country from 2013 to 2009 to 20, where we are. Two governments, same thing. Number one, they promised that as we are selling this to you, now that you have paid $1.4 billion in cash, we will ensure that we charge the appropriate tariff, so people will pay for electricity. Once we signed, we came on board, they released. I hear some Nigerians, either out of ignorance or mischief, they say, didn't you do your due diligence? Didn't you know then? We knew, we did. But as soon as we came on board, they stopped and they didn't fulfill that agreement. That's number one. Number two, they also said, because of the mess we are giving you, the mess that you are missing on the ground, we're going to give you 100 billion naira subsidy for you to subsidize, to stabilize for the first 2 years. They did not. Till today, not a single kobo has been paid. Two more fingers. They said, we are going to leave you with a debt-free balance sheet so that the disco should not carry the debts of everybody in the value chain. There should be risk allocation, proper risk allocation. The GENCO should carry the risk of gas suppliers, gas payment, and whatever comes out of that. Transmission, the same thing. But what they did, they left that book very toxic, and that's why we're not creditworthy. So that's number three. The last finger, they said that they will ensure that they themselves, government, the almighty federal government of Nigeria, state government and local government, will be paying their bills. Up to today, they are very good at not paying bills. Ministry, department, and agencies are owing the discos, and this is the same money they expect us to remit. If you are owing my father, and you come to our house and say we have to sell our house, but pay our own debt. If you pay our debt, you pay us our money. My father in his grave will be happy that at least we collected some of our money. And again, you see that a wife who does not know how to cook, it's better for a wife to admit that I cannot cook than to keep telling people and lying to the public that the house girl that has gone to the kitchen in the middle of the night to put salt inside the soup. Because we can call the mother-in-law to come and help with cooking.
You are not sounding like a traditional chief that you are.
I am a high chief of Igbo land. I'm proudly one. What we need to understand is that the federal government seems to be missing it. And sometimes we ask ourselves, who did we offend in this country? Because what we are saying is that we should be able to get it right for once in this country. Trading blames, pointing one finger when you have four rubbish fingers, and you are still pointing one finger. Why not say, let us see what we can all do together? Transmission is there, owned by them. Federal government owns it 100%. They promised at the point of privatization that they were going to do a concession of transmission company in Nigeria to private sector for proper. Today, transmission is just like NEPA. And unfortunately, we still have certain individuals going around lying, instead of just saying the truth. And you see a lot of things happening that we all need to fix. So for us, as ANET, what we are saying is, let's put Nigeria first. The minister was very wrong. I always pray and hope he didn't say what he was quoted to have said. And for Siemens, if you want me to talk about Siemens, first I will invite you to Google Siemens. The good thing for Nigeria since 2001 is that on your handset you cannot even Google anything anywhere in the world. But let me say about Siemens. Siemens is an equipment manufacturing company. Siemens had no record anywhere in the world for running any disco or any kind of utility. It's just like you expecting Boeing.
Maybe you don't need to demarcate Siemens, because Siemens
I'm not demarcating them.
No.
I'm just saying that
the electrification roadmap in Egypt.
Yes.
In April 2019, they also signed on to the electricity mega project in Iraq.
But they are not the one.
And in July, they met with the president of Nigeria to sign an agreement, technical and commercial agreement on Nigeria's electricity roadmap. And
you can check and find out what happened to them in this country.
Don't demarcate them.
You may not know, but let's talk quickly about Boeing or Airbus. I need to make that analogy.
Go ahead.
Boeing supplies aeroplanes to British Airways and other airlines. But let me pick British Airways. It is like you saying that because Boeing is good at manufacturing aircraft, they can run British Airways. No. There's a difference between the competency of a spare parts seller or manufacturer and somebody who runs that business. That's what I'm saying. Siemens is very good, and they are very good manufacturers of equipment, but they have never run any utility anywhere in the world. Go and check Egypt that you're talking about, and go and check Iraq. I'm talking about operators. I'm not talking about suppliers or equipment maker. That's what I want to say about Siemens.
Well, we're going to take a short break now, but you've raised a lot of issues. I want to talk about metering. I don't know if I have time to ask the question with regards to metering assets providers.
Yes.
The former Minister for Power, Works and Housing, Fashola, said that metering is not the primary responsibility of DISCOs, and the federal government, through NERC, appointed third-party providers. Well, Nigerians are still having to deal with estimated billing. It is an evil, quite frankly. And it's a process it's a situation that benefits the DISCOs. So DISCOs are getting blamed for that too. I'd like you to address that after the break.
Thank you very much.
So we'll take a short break now on The Morning Show, and we'll be back with more with Chief Sunday Oduntan. Please stay with us. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on Arise News. We're still with Chief Sunday Oduntan, Executive Director of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. So before the break, sir, we're going to talk about estimated billing, the bane of the lives of many Nigerians. This is a system that benefits DISCOs, and DISCOs have been blamed for its continued use, even though, the federal government has assigned third-party providers. What is the situation there?
Thank you very much. Talking about blaming, DISCOs, we are now used to being blamed for everything. Very soon, some people's wives will refuse to give birth, and they will say it is a DISCO because they belong to the power sector. Now, a major problem with the Nigerian power sector is very incessant interventionist regulatory inconsistencies, is the very especially current regulators, non-independence of regulators. Regulators ought to be independent. So what we had then was from the policymaker, like you quoted rightly, the then minister said, metering is not a primary responsibility of this DISCO. We're taking it out. And they took it out. Fine. We expect that by now all Nigerians should have been metered. Now that they've given it to third-party contractors, they've given it to people that are not related to us, all we do is that we work on that map, we give them access to the back end, our ICT, and our billing platform. Some of them are very good. In fact, many of them are very good businessmen, good contractors. But why are they not performing? They are not performing because the same government, the same regulator that creates that mess, are the one impeding the progress of MAP. And they like to tell the public, regulators in particular, they will say, DISCO must continue to meter. You've taken meter out. All we are doing is cooperating and working with your agencies, your your contractors. Now, number one problem with Nigeria is that we know people are not metered. Can you believe that the Nigerian government, as I speak, the Nigerian government has put 45% duty on meters? So you want meters to come to the country, but these guys who are bringing in the meters are being asked to pay 45% duty. How can they get the meters across into the country? That is a major problem. And of course, for people on the street, no meter, it is us. They even still call us NEPA. They say it is us. We are the one that have not metered them. The problem with metering lies with the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and the federal government of Nigeria, who should have been advised by the Federal Ministry of Power as to what other countries do. For those contractors, those businessmen, those investors in meters, they should be given, number one, loan at a single-digit rate. I'm not speaking for them, but that is good for their business and for the country. The duty, in fact, they should be given a waiver. Because if you need meter, let it be mass. And we have a couple of them meter manufacturers in the country. Some of them assemble, some of them manufacture. Even those, they have a lot of problems. And you will see that I will even plead that maybe you should invite some of them to come here on there and tell Nigerians about their experience. So this course has nothing to do with the problem of metering. The problem lies with the almighty federal government of Nigeria, Federal Ministry of Power, and the almighty Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Because we believe that when you are regulating, it is right for you to have a dream. But when you have a dream, you walk the talk. But when you stand on the podium dancing and saying, I have a dream that one day Nigeria will have 24-hour electricity, one day, one man, one vote. For a regulator, pardon me, one man, one vote, regulator has nothing to do with politics. A regulator should be focused, professional, competent, and do the needful. 100,000 prayer will not give you light in this country. It's not about going on the mountain to pray. And no amount of activism or a Luther container will give you meters or electricity. What we need to do is to look at the problem. And the problem is the solution is very simple. Alignment of the value chain. But it seems that our regulators don't even know what it means to align the value chain. Well, technical alignment, commercial alignment.
Everybody. But everyone else...
let me blame myself first.
No, everyone else...
I've done that in the past, you should remember. Ruben,
everyone else is
we are not competent. We are not efficient. Our own problem is efficiency. And I'm saying that is why we have regulators. And on our board sits a director who represents the interests of the federal government, who are the owners of 40% shares. So I'm not saying we are perfect, but even our inefficiency is linked to pricing. You cannot take it away from each other. So I'm not saying we are good. Even amongst us, out there, we still have some of our staff collecting bribe. So it's not something we're proud of. Okay, and we're doing our best to even train our staff.
The MD and the CEO of the Transmission Company of Nigeria says, like Salim Maman, the Minister of Power, that the discos are the problem. He says generation has been fixed, and according to the minister, we generate up to about 13,000 megawatts, right? He says transmission has been fixed, and according to the minister, we transmit up to about 7,000 megawatts, right? But at the end of the day, he says the discos lack the capacity to evacuate these 7,000 that is from the GENCOs. That, you take only 3,000. And out of these 3,000, the distribution companies pay for only 1,000 megawatts. And even that 1,000 megawatts, the minister insists, is subsidized by the federal government. And he says that the federal government can no longer continue to subsidize electricity supply by the discos. But earlier on, when you were defining the four fingers, you pointed out that, in fact, the 100 billion subsidy that was promised, the discos have not received a penny. So who is saying the truth? Who is lying to Nigerians?
Well, I dare not call my honorable minister a liar.
You can say it
and I will not. I'm a good Yoruba man. I can even use enough proverb to drive home my point.
Yeah, I see all the traditional
and I will not
chiefs
call my friend. I will not call my friend and brother Eugene Mohammed a liar. I will only borrow Eugene Mohammed what we do in Egbaland. It is called wisdom. Before we open our mouth in Abeokuta, we think about what we say because of the future. The former holders of position. For instance, when I was young, there are people in this country called super palm sex. Where are they today? Whatever we do today will be part of history in 30, 40, 60, 100 years. That is why we don't need to prop up figures that do not exist. So, to the figures. And we are interested as an in fact. One, I can confirm here and let anybody come here and report it. Nigeria does not generate 13,000 megawatts. Siemens in their report also allude to the same fact. There's a difference. And I wonder who we offend in this country. I wonder who are the people that brief our ministers. There's a difference between generation capacity and actual generation. The capacity, the installed capacity, what your machine can do is there, no doubt. In Egbaland, there's a power plant called Olonjogo Power Plant in Papalanto. That power plant uses gas to fire its turbine. The last time I checked, Egbaland and Ogun State does not have any gas. The gas comes all the way from the Niger Delta. Gas constraint alone incapacitates the effort or ability of all these power plants to produce optimally. So when you look at their installed capacity, you'll find a big figure. When you look at what they are able to do, due to lack of raw materials, due to a lot of other problems technically that affect their ability to get that raw material, whether it is the problem in Niger Delta and some other things, then you will see that that is the problem. So 13,000 generation does not exist. It exists on paper because the machine is there. It can be done. It is possible, but it's not being done. That's number one. Mr. Transmission. It is sad again that we have corrected this, and Mr. Transmission is still going about banding a figure that doesn't exist for transmission. The Transmission Company of Nigeria has never been able to wheel 6,000 megawatts for 24 hours in this country. The maximum that they've ever done was a little over 5,000, and it lasted for less than 24 hours. Why? Dilapidated and radial transmission grid. Now, they themselves did a stress test in the past, which said this coast can wheel 6,228 megawatts of electricity. And the discos, since we took over in 2013, we have never received even 5,800, talking of 6,288. So when you say, what can we do? We are saying we can do minimum of 6,288. Nobody has brought that to us for us to distribute that one. But transmission, they now did a computer simulation, which they now lie to the world like the real thing. Computer simulation cannot give you the real figure. They need to do a practical simulation and let the whole world knows what the outcome is. So there's nothing like 8,100, one time they said, another time 7,000 megawatts that they said they can wheel. They cannot wheel it. It has never happened. Let them show the public. It's a public information. Go on their site. You will see NCC Oshobo under TCN. They will roll out to you. You'll see there on the website.
Well, if you could just hold your thoughts, let's take another quick commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Chief Sunday Oduntan, Executive Director of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. So can we move on to the next question? Because I have another finger that has been pointed at Disco. Since we're talking about fingers this morning, there was a fire outbreak at Ayede station near Ring Road, and that has affected power supply in Ibadan, in Oyo State, and in Ogun State, Shagamu and Ijebu. And press reports are blaming Discos. What's your comment on that?
Thank you very much. I said earlier that very soon some people's wives or girlfriends or concubines will not be able to give birth due to infertility. The next thing they will do is they will say, the Discos. Ayede
Well, the
in Ibadan.
need to provide electricity so that families can have good
The discos are
environment.
willing to provide electricity as distributors if the producer produces enough, and the trailer, the transporter that brings it, can bring it to us. We are not allowed to go and get directly from the producer. So if the trailer has a good tire, good battery, good engine, and they don't lie about the road that is bad for the trailer, let the trailer bring it to us and we'll distribute. However, Ayede transmission station in Ibadan is very close to just offering road in Ibadan. That station is owned by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, presided over by my good friend Yuji Mohammed. And that fire outbreak, thank God nobody has said that it was the discos that put fire there, or it was the lack of protection from the disco end. I think there's a need for the honest people among us to go and do a good test of all the major transformers installed by TCN all over the country. You will see a lot of substandard things, and I'm saying that because a similar fire outbreak occurred in Benin and so many other areas in the last 12 months. Why do we always have those fires? So that infrastructure is owned by the federal government, TCN infrastructure. So I also read in the paper too, when they even said IBDC power plant caught fire. Again, I think our journalists too, our media people, I'm begging, no. I think they should also learn to read widely and improve their knowledge of this sector before they can be writing on this sector. Because the transmission stations are everywhere. We have one in Shagamu, Ogun State. We have one in Abeokuta, Ogun State. And if you look at them till today, they are very old and dilapidated. The 3 transmission transformers, the one in Abeokuta, during Mr. Fashola's time, they changed 2. They even upgraded 2. And the other one is still the way it was since maybe 1981. Again, we have a lot of problems like that all over the country. So we have nothing to do with those fire outbreaks. And I think it is time that all of us get our act together and do the job that we are supposed to do. And we should stop pointing one finger. But every time you point one finger at anybody, you have those dirty 4 fingers pointed at yourself. That is the truth. Well, and allow me to quickly say something that I learned from a friend who happened to be a former regulator, Sam Amadi. He said, and I quote, "In Nigeria, everyone pretends to know better than the many doing the job. And then they end up plunging everyone into a pit of into a pit. They put everyone into a pit through unconsidered change of actors." It simply means that in everything we do, I think it is time we begin to put round peg in a round hole, so that everything we do, we will not be just blaming and blaming and blaming. We stand to say here, without being immodest, that ANED will not go out and put anything. We don't even defend the discourse. We are the first to say we are inefficient. We will not go out and peddle any lie to convince anybody, because what Nigerians need is electricity. And I want to use, my English is not good, so I will say one Yoruba sentence, which I know Ruben, because of his calling, should be able to interpret to our listeners. In Abeokuta, they say it, and I quote, "Bó ti tọ́ ti kú, bó ti gbà ń ṣàárẹ̀, bó ṣe lérí kórí, ìyẹn rí dẹ́kù." Ruben will interpret that. Bó ti tọ́ is the normal thing, the way we should do it, is dead. Bó ti gbà, well, because the normal thing is dead, the one we can still manage and find a way is sick, on sick bed, very sick. But no matter how we can just paper over it, covering things and cover things up, that is the only one that is still alive and not sick. But that's my bad English. Ruben can say it better.
That our government is here to do the right thing in the electricity sector, and that's where the challenge lies. But, in order to find a solution, yes, the Minister of Power, Salim Ahmed, says he's preparing a memo which is taken to the Federal Executive Council to take a decision on the discourse. And that memo, from what he has said, is going to probably ask for a number of prayers from Federal Executive Council. The principal one being to revoke the licenses. Maybe not all the discos, maybe a few. What will be the implications if that were to happen? Because you recall that even the Electricity Regulatory Commission has also been threatening, either to sanction or to revoke licenses. What are the risks that Nigeria could face?
Well, first, I would say that what we have in terms of operators or acquisition of discos, even gencos, is a contractual relationship. And I'm happy, Ruben, you're also a lawyer. You're a man of many parts, so you know all about the law of contract. You know about clauses in contract, including arbitration clause, which of course may not even be domiciled where you are operating. So we believe that as long as the government or the regulator do the right thing that is consistent with the wordings and the tenets of the agreement signed with the private sectors, the investors, they are free to take any action as long as the rule of law is observed. And remember, another Yoruba sentence, I don't know how to say it in English, you will never and you can never be a judge in your own case. When you put forward a case, the two parties in dispute will still need an arbitrator, somebody in between to look at it dispassionately, without emotion, and come to a conclusion. As far as we are concerned, this same disco that some people are saying they may revoke our licenses, we have taken our licenses to them before, 2 times. One during Mr. Jonathan, we say, thank you for selling to us, take. We are no more interested. They call it force majeure in law. I'm a lawyer. I said, take. We are no more interested. Give us our money back. They say, no, we are not taking it from you. That was during Mr. Jonathan time once. During Mr. Buhari's time.
Dr. Goodluck.
Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Yes.
We gave it to him. He returned back to us. No, keep on running it. Now, what do we call this? This one is President General Muhammadu Buhari, the President General. We say, we are no more interested. They say no. So, for us to have filed force majeure, tells you that we are not a desperate set of people. My investors are not desperate. All they are concerned with is to be able to recover their costs. But if there's a need to change pattern, as long as there's no ojoro, I don't know the meaning of ojoro in English. As long as there's no ojoro, no magomago,
no offense, no mischief.
Let the Lord take its course. Let the normal thing be done. Ultimately, I am a customer of a disco. We are all customers of a disco. What we all want is electricity. I'm not an investor. I pity these Nigerian investors because if I have the same money that they have, I'll probably be in Miami or maybe somewhere in Bahamas enjoying my money instead of doing this kind of investment. That's my own personal opinion. Investing
in Nigeria remains worthwhile. We want to hope and believe.
Yes.
But there's been is it a contradiction or a clarification by the spokesperson to the Minister of Power saying that the agreement between the federal government and Siemens does not involve distribution. So that threat of we'll take it away from discos and hand it to Siemens is an error, that agreement is about transmission and generation. But if that threat is on the table, if the discos are to be released from their contractual obligations, to put it that way, who are the new investors that are going to come forward? Is there any interest being expressed anywhere?
Thank you very much. Olatundu, the daughter of MK Abiola, your question is very, very interesting. That question is for the federal government because it is the landlord that can determine who the tenants will be. The only thing is that if a tenant has paid in advance, the landlord has to return the money back to the tenant and say, I don't want Ruben Abachi again as my tenant. Leave my house. But then the law also stipulates how long you need to give Ruben or those things that are in the tenancy agreement, to say the least. So whatever anybody want to decide, if they even want us to work with anybody, including Siemens, we are more than happy to work with any organization, any company, anywhere in the world, local or international, as long as that will bring power, electricity to the people, and it will also enable our investors to recover their costs. Cost recovery is the primary purpose of doing any business. Arise TV will not be on air if you are not able to recover your costs, because you won't be able to pay your salary. So we don't know about, and when people blow hot and they come and blow cold, you see, again, but don't let me say it in Yoruba again. If I say that one is very funny. I can only say that to give a birth to a baby requires two things. In the process of childbirth, you will see blood and you will see water. And Yoruba call it tibitire. Both are required for a baby to be born. And I'll quote your father, the late Shivemke Abiola. He said two things, and I quote, "Here I'm clapping. I'm doing this now. You cannot clap with one hand." That's number one. And my very good uncle, MK Abiola, also said something. He said, "This is my head, oh, let the world see. See, you cannot shave this head in my absence. To shave my head, you need to sit me down, make sure I'm calm. If I'm violent, you can't shave that head. And if you hold my hand to my back, you then tie my leg, and you say I should run. I cannot run." Again, MK Abiola in 1993 said, "You cannot padlock my mouth and ask me to sing hallelujah." He even said hallelujah can be sung in many ways. There is a violent, negative hallelujah, and there's a positive, peaceful hallelujah. So you can even sing in hallelujah. There's hallelujah chorus in our church,
I know hallelujah
which we
chorus.
both attended, St. Jude's Anglican Church, Okejeun Abeokuta, my church, and his church. So we know about hallelujah chorus. So the point is that I'm always begging the federal government to do the right thing. Because what we are seeing is that from person to person, from generation to generation, and then you continue to see the same thing, we're still making the same mistake. We're still, doing headmaster and school pupils. What we should do is stakeholders sit around the table. The people in the power sector up to this morning are not talking to one another. And that's very embarrassing. That's what I can say.
Well, quickly, just before we go, we have just about a minute left before we join, our correspondents in India, where President Trump is visiting. Now, all of this, since the minister said he will go to the Federal Executive Council, what efforts have your investors made to reach out to key stakeholders, to tell your own side of the story?
Part of what we do is what we are doing, which is advocacy, going out to enlighten and explain things to the public. Behind the curtain, too, we really always try to cooperate with the executive arm of government and even the National Assembly and various state governments. Because, as I said, you cannot do a business anywhere if the water is hot, because they will feel the heat, you will also feel the heat. But if you all work together and bring cold water, everybody will drink and go to bed peacefully. So we are always willing to talk. In fact, when we make mistake, we want our regulator to do the needful, to call us to order, even to penalize us where and when necessary, as long as it is done in a, legal and, should I say, equitable way. So, yes, we are open to any discussion or any step that can give Nigerian people supply.
Well,
and that can also let our investors recoup and recover their costs.
On that note, thank you very much, Sunday Oduntan, for coming to the morning show. We look forward to inviting you again.